Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hope you're doing well. We are continuing our reading of Aqida Tawhid, Islamic Monotheism, the creed of it, by Dr. Salih Fawzan, alright? And we have been going quite deep into what is shirk and what are forms of worship and how we are not supposed to swear by anything other than Allah. Okay? So we're continuing upon that note. Let's begin. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Go ahead and listen to this as you're relaxing, you're on your commute, washing dishes, cleaning your fish tank, whatever fun thing it is that you're doing. Also, that one should say, had it not been for Allah, and so. The correct thing is to say, whatever Allah wishes, then what you wish. See, this is one other thing. It's just the way in which you use the speech patterns that in Islam. Whatever Allah wishes, then what you wish. This is very important for us in how we speak. And had it not been for Allah, then you... I gotta do that too. Had it not... I always say like, thank Allah, if Allah permits, if Allah wills, inshallah, God willing, right? Allah willing. Now we see here another one, had it not been for Allah, then you, X, Y, and Z. This is because the word then implies an order. Yes, it does. Which indicates succession. So you make the wish of the slave dependent upon the wish of Allah. As Allah has said, quote, and you will not, unless if it be that Allah wills, the Lord of the Alameen, mankind, jinns, and all that exists. Quran 81:29. End quote. As for the conjunction and, it is general and indicates association of two or more things. It does not indicate any order or succession. Other examples are as saying, I wouldn't have had this if not for Allah and you. And this is from the favor of Allah and you. From the favor of Allah and you. Actions. Examples include wearing of rings and strings in order to remove afflictions or to prevent harm. The wearing of talismans for fear of the evil eye and so on. Okay, this is another thing that's important. This can slip in. Alright, we see this a lot. Got so many annotations on this book. We have a good example of this when it comes to how certain Christians behave. I don't mean to take a dunk on them, but they do believe in wearing crucifixes and crosses, that this somehow is like a talisman. And you have to be careful. I had an example where I had this really cool mineral bracelet. They were like these Dalmatian looking spotted rocks, and they were polished and made into beads, and I would wear it and I hated my job, and I would look at it and think, I use it as a reminder that one day this will come to an end. I won't have to be in this job forever. Whenever one of my coworkers is being an arse, I'm gonna look at it and breathe. And then I bought like a little Dalmatian dog statue, and I was like, I'm gonna look at this little Dalmatian dog statue and think about how hard I'm working so that one day I can have a house and a farm and buy a Dalmatian puppy. And I'll use this mini Dalmatian statue to be a reminder for my goals, so I don't forget. And looking back on that now that I've discovered more about what is shirk and how you should only rely on Allah. I wasn't a Muslim then when I did that, right? But you begin to see how worship comes about, even for things that you didn't even think of, right? And so we have to remember that when you are afflicted with something, if you're in fear, a cross, stuff like that, it's not going to protect you. It's not going to prevent harm. Don't fall for wearing certain symbols and then thinking that it has some sort of protective power. just isn't the case. Excuse me. Excuse me. Alhamdulillah. So, the evil eye is something people worry about quite naturally. But you can make dua. Wearing a certain thing like that Greek, Turkish blue eye thing, it's not going to work. I had a boss who gave me one of those when she went to Sparta. And I put it on a keychain on my backpack. You know, don't believe in that kind of stuff. When he believes that these are means of removing affliction, keynote here. If you think that some type of item can remove an affliction, you're getting close to shirk, I'd argue. Or preventing them, this is lesser shirk because Allah has not made these things means. However, if he believes that these things prevent or remove affliction in and of themselves, then this is major shirk, as he has placed reliance in other than Allah. This frees you, because you'll see this. Go into a Tibetan Buddhist shop and just see all the stuff they had. I used to have a whole bunch, you know, and you begin to notice, like, how much money did I spend on this stuff? Quite a lot. Quite a lot. Even some silver rings, and I'm like, what? Like, what? And I didn't even really know what those symbols meant. They were in that language. Like, what is going on here? So watch out for that. Hidden shirk. This is polytheism in intentions and aims, such as showing off, the desire to be known, and so on. For example, one performs a deed that is a means of closeness to Allah, seeking praises from people therewith. He perfects his prayer or gives in charity in order that he be praised and extolled, or he audibly utters words of remembrance and embellishes his voice in the recitation of the Quran, in order that people hear him and praise and extol him. When showing off mixes with a deed, it destroys it. Okay, so here, I think that there are really good examples of the balance of charity. Like when you donate a bench in a park, they want to put your name on it. I think that's kind of cool. Like in memory of so-and-so, in honor of so-and-so. A water well donated because of so-and-so. When I see stuff like that, it does motivate me. What I don't get motivated by is the typical cliche video of, I gave a homeless guy a sandwich and then I made him give me a thumbs up as I put it on TikTok. You see? Then I'm like, no, I ain't about that. Or when somebody, this may sound controversial, but some people grow their hair really long and then they shave it and sell it for wigs for people who have, like, who are bald. And in Islam, the wig maker is cursed, and those who, you're not allowed to wear wigs. But there's just something unnerving about it, especially when it's parents forcing children. They make it seem like it was the kid's choice, but I saw a girl who had beautiful hair, and then they cut all her hair off, and she donated it to charity. And you're like, I don't know, man, it just doesn't feel right. Why did you film it? Like, it's like me taking all the feathers off a bird, and I'll be like, sure, they'll grow back. They're donating it to the other birds. It's just something weird about it. So they wanted praise for that, but you have to wonder about it, what kind of coercion was there in the background, right? So here's the quote from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So whoever hopes for the meeting with his Lord, let him work righteousness and associate none as partner in the worship of his Lord. Quran 18:110. The Prophet, peace be upon him, said, what I fear most for you is lesser shirk. They, the companions, asked, what is lesser shirk? He said, showing off. Showing off is difficult because I like seeing people succeed and do well. I think a classic form of American showing off is most vulgarly when men make it rain on strippers. That is something that always bothered me, or when women pop bottles of champagne and then pour it on themselves, or when they're in the VIP section. Excuse me, my throat is so dry. Pardon me. This to me is so disgusting type of showing off your wealth, because there's no good coming from it, and it's haram. Also, when Greta Thunberg is getting arrested for going to climate protests, to me it seems like a form of showing off, a form of theater. When something has the element of stage theater, I see it really as a form of showing off. In a classical sense, think of the rich Roman guy being carried on a litter and he's throwing coins out, and all the plebs are like gathering on the ground to pick it up. There's a lot of imagery that can come to mind with showing off. However, I do think that some people are quite envious, and they call everything showing off because it makes them uncomfortable, because they see that they're slacking. If somebody has a really nice horse and they're showing it to you, like, look, I have this very nice horse, I don't think it's showing off. I'm like, you have a nice horse, you should be proud of that. Cool, I hope to one day have a nice horse like that too. I don't think they have to just never take a picture of their horse, never show anybody their horse. The horse must stay in the barn. No one's allowed to visit the ranch. You see what I mean? Beauty in terms of, let's say you bought a nice house and you're showing some people in your family, and even if you have it on social media, I want to see what the house looks like. Hello, I'm never going to own a house like that. Probably not. Allah knows best. But I want to be able to look at it still. You know? So, if you don't show me, I don't get to see it. I like looking at pictures of sushi feasts. If the chefs never take pictures of it, I'm not going to see it. You know, it makes me happy. Like, I don't get jealous or resentful or sad. I'm like, oh, that looks so good. It's like a form of visual therapy. So, you know, come on. You just have to think, is this showing off, or am I just jealous? Am I just a hater? Is this person just being an arrogant twat? Yes, then yeah, it's probably showing off. There's a balance. Like, if somebody slam dunks the ball over and over, are they showing off their skills? Or are they just making you more entertained? You see what I'm saying? Something to think about. Also, part of hidden shirk is to perform a deed for the sake of worldly benefits, such as the one who performs pilgrimage, or makes the call to prayer, or leads people in prayers for the sake of money, or he learns the knowledge of the Sharia and undertakes jihad for the sake of wealth. The Prophet, peace be upon him, said, "Ruined is the slave of dinar. Ruined is the slave of dirham. Ruined is the slave of food. Ruined is the slave of clothing. If he is given, he is pleased, but if not, he is displeased." Yes. The slave of wealth. The slave of money. Worshipping money. Of fashion. You know, some people who are really into fashion are some really strange individuals. I think you can look classy, rustic. You can have clean clothes, and if your clothes has a bleach stain, you know, because us moms were cleaning, you get those little bleach spots. If you got a little bit of a snag or a tear or something, or your bright colors are not as bright anymore, I'm not going to judge it. Now, if you got some grunge on you, and you know you got access to a washing machine, running water, like, come on. You know, you can have basic hygiene and have simplistic clothing, minimalistic clothing. You see what I'm saying? I'm not saying that you need to drop money on fancy suits, because I always found that to be odd. But I understand how new money and old money and the aristocratic class competes with each other in that terms of fashion. But I think just caring about what you wear doesn't mean you're a slave of clothing. Just how you present yourself to people. Like, if you go to a job interview and you don't wear your best, it's a little bit like, come on, man. You need at least one good coat, one good pair of shoes, and keep them nice if that's all you have, right? But if you gotta go wash your shoes and patch up your clothes in order to look presentable, do that. But there are women and men who spend a lot on shoes. Chris D'Elia, he once did a tour of his closet, and he had so many shoes. I was like, why? Why an entire closet for your shoes? And then women with their high heels, you're like, what? I can't handle that. It's like living in a clothing store. You might as well just go live inside of Macy's and be like, I live here now. It doesn't make sense to me at all whatsoever. Slave of food? I think you can make mistakes in terms of overpaying for some food, but I don't think there's anything wrong with like eating caviar or paying for good sushi, because the supply chain is quite long in inflation, and you want to make sure you're getting quality seafood. But if you don't know how to regulate yourself in terms of what you eat, then you're going to be in trouble. Like some people will say, like, if I tell them have a nice organic ribeye, oh, I'm not a slave to food. And you're thinking, like, okay, let me give a better example. Like if I tell someone you shouldn't eat fast food, you should cook at home and be more rustic. And if they turn around and tell me I'm not a slave to food, well, actually, that food that you're eating is not healthy. So eating healthy of quality ingredients doesn't make you a slave to food. Do you see my point? Because I've had some instances where I'll be very strict with junk food, and some people were like, oh, live a little, and it's like, actually, I grew up eating fast food and I have stomach problems. Okay? So I have to eat clean and I have to eat good. And you can make pastries from scratch that taste 10 times better than that food. All the food preservatives. You look at some of these things made by factories. Blueberry muffins, you don't need a whole lot. Milk, baking powder, flour, blueberries, eggs. You see what I mean? But you read all these chemicals and then you're like, wow, that's why we got so many autoimmune diseases. We got so much going wrong with our gut biomes because we just have tons and tons of food preservatives and GMOs in our food that are banned in other countries. So actually, I think being a slave to fast food is more problematic than someone saying, I want to go to a nice Italian restaurant and get some pasta made by hand with homemade pasta sauce, homemade marinara. You see, who's really the slave to food? You know what I mean? Like, if you can eat a giraffe, it's halal to eat a giraffe if it's killed in the right way. So if I say I want to eat a giraffe because it's exotic meat and I want to taste it, that don't make me a slave to food. It just means I want to taste it, right? But if I'm like, I must have a quail who grew up in Machu Picchu, flown in by a private helicopter, and must be harvested in front of me, and I'll pay $100,000 for that one quail. Okay, now you've gone too far. You see, now you're just crazy. You know? No. Not good, right? So there's much that could be said. Like, me cooking at home doesn't make me a slave to food. And going to nice restaurants once in a while creates jobs, doesn't make you a slave to food. If you see those Indian street food health code violation segments and how many people get diarrhea in India, food poisoning and all that, saying that those people should clean up their regulations of who gets to sell food doesn't make you a slave to food. Do you see what I mean? If you put gravy on mashed potatoes, that doesn't mean you're a slave to food because it has gravy. So I am very into like the parameters. Like if I put rosemary and thyme, black pepper, white pepper, and sea salt on my chicken, I marinate it for 24 hours and I slow roasted over hickory, that doesn't mean I'm a slave to food because I enjoy making flavorful dishes. And if I just put salt and then don't even put butter or olive oil on it, put it in there, that doesn't mean that because I seasoned my food and prepared it and marinated, that somehow it's fancy and I'm a slave to food. And if I don't just have boiled potatoes with no salt and no butter, no sour cream or cheese, that I've somehow become bad. Because some cultures, they're not raised around dairy, so they think anything with dairy is too rich and therefore you're being a slave to food. But they grow up in desert climates. You grew up in a winter climate. You're a dairy cow when there's no vegetables and like you're struggling, you gotta go hunt. You got a big wheel of cheese. That's gonna come in handy. You got a dairy cow, you can go out and milk, make you some quick queso fresco or whatever. That's awesome, right? Get you some butter. Think about it. You know, much could be said. Maybe I'm very into that topic, but that's how I feel. Imam Ibn Qayyim said, as for shirk and aims of intentions, this is a shoreless sea, and few of those who escape therefrom. Whoever intends by his deeds other than the face of Allah, and intends other than closeness to Allah and seeking his reward, he has associated partners with Allah on his intention and aims. Sincerity is to make one's deeds, utterance, aims, and intentions solely for Allah. This is the pure monotheistic path of Ibrahim, to which Allah commanded all his slaves, and he does not accept other than it. This is the reality of Islam, as Allah the Most High has said, quote, and whoever seeks a religion other than Islam, it will never be accepted of him, and in the hereafter he will be of the losers. Quran 3:85. Okay, sincerity to make one's deeds, utterances and aims, and intentions solely for Allah. That can be hard, but it can be done, right? Increments. See what you're doing in your life. Ask yourself, you know, what you can do. And like, if someone is a doctor, they charge you money, it doesn't mean they're not doing something for the sake of Allah. If they don't charge you money and they do a charity surgery, that's good, but you can't always demand something for free because you want them to do it for the sake of Allah. I think that some people abuse that angle. Like, do this for me because I'm a Muslim, and do it for the sake of Allah. Your reward's with Allah, so give this to me for free, or I don't have to tip you, or I don't have to pay you, or you name it, or I don't have to do a favor back for you. It's like, yeah, people can do something and not expect anything in return, but courtesy demands that you don't forget who did you a favor. You scratch my back, I scratch your back. It's just reciprocation, reciprocity, right? So intentions matter, but also make sure you're not taking advantage of people's spirituality. Let me know what you think. I'm gonna go chill with the children, see what they're doing. Hopefully they didn't color on the walls. Just kidding. No, we don't want them to do that. And if you'd like to support my content, you can do so via the blog, which is www.subscribestar.com/mihanarchive. Hope to see you there.